Welcome back, everybody, to actually episode 75 of the Unchained Vodcast. A Song of Ice and Fire, the Ragnarok live streams. Few announcements for today before we really get into the meat of talking about the last two City State Entertainment live streams that happened. First, new schedule. We are resuming the show. It's been a few months because we were waiting for news and stuff to actually talk about to fuel episodes. And we've decided with the recent live streams that what we're going to do is we're going to move from doing a semi-weekly show, one every 2 weeks, to doing a monthly show. So we're hoping that'll keep a steady stream of episodes while stretching us out and not taxing the current amount of information too much so that we just have to make everything up. So we will be doing like second Wednesday of every month on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Still trying to run for about an hour for our show. Second update I have, we do have kind of a cutoff today. I know sometimes we usually say we run 45 minutes to an hour, and we usually run way over that because we sit around and talk and stuff. Today, I've got another podcast following this one, also talking about the Ragnarok live streams. For Smart Gamer Live, they're going to do one right after this, and we don't really want to run over their time, especially if they've got a lot of Camelot Unchained people in their podcast stuff, and I'm going to guest on there, so at about 15 till, we'll kind of end things, and in the stream, and then I will actually Twitch raid over to their channel, so anybody that wants to go see what they have to say and stuff, we'll all shift over to their channel if you just want to hang out and go over. What else did I have? Oh, last update I had. I know, I got a lot of stuff. We are three of us anyway, myself, Brand, and Kriss, but not our guest, Apollon, are members of Order Veritas and the Legend Gaming community. The three of us are. And I just wanted to mention to people that we've kind of shifted things a bit. We changed some things in our community, and so we've actually opened it up so that Legend Gaming itself no longer really has a restricted membership and focus on achievement and stuff. Really, it's individual guilds within that community that do now. It's just a Discord community that's open for people to join and hang out. So I'm going to drop shameless plug with a link there if people just want to hang out in that Discord. And, it's now a no obligation Discord where people can hang out and just talk about games, game with people, whatever. So if you want to add to your 99 other Discord servers, there you go. So with all that being said, and that link will only last for a short time. Not that there aren't other links, but people have to ask for them because it is actually going up on the stream. So I kind of timed it out so people won't be on YouTube just typing it in. Anywho, getting to the actual business of the day. The streams for the last 2 weeks. I wanted to start us off with a bit of a question, if I can read my own handwriting here, because I scribbled it at the top at the last moment. Yes. Everyone's favorite word. Linuxification. I cringe every time I hear this word now. Well, the question I wanted to start us off with, because I feel like this is a little bit part of the problems that we're going to kind of discuss, and that question is based on when they were first talking about Linuxification and Camelot Unchained. How long did you feel like they were kind of suggesting that process was going to take?
2 months.
Yeah, that's about the impression I had. Like 2 or 3 months, tops.
Well, to be fair, we are not devs. We don't know how long this stuff takes, but just from doing the math, if you have 5 years worth of code and you're porting it from Windows to Linux, it's gonna take some time.
Certainly. That's part of why I'm actually asking this question. And as always, all of our questions are for chat as well. If you want to respond, if you have your own questions, we'll watch chat and try to respond to them as well. Because my impression that I got was also that they were saying it was going to take a couple of months. And that's kind of where I feel like, as you said, we're not devs, so most of us are going on what they tell us. And that's why I specifically worded that way, based on what they said when they first started talking about Linuxification. God, I hate saying the word. How long do we think that was going to take? Frequency said 6 weeks. Most of us here saying a couple of months, and that was kind of the impression I had as well. And the reason I bring it up is because I feel like the first thing I wanted to get into, topic-wise, talking about the live streams, is what went wrong with that first live stream about Ragnarok. And so I'd like to open that up for what went wrong with that live stream. What do we feel were the main problems with it? And I do feel like one of them is how long Linuxification has taken, because I feel like their company motto at this point might as well be changed to "it took longer than expected." Not just from our perspective, but also from every estimate they give us for everything. It always seems like it turns into "it took longer than expected." And so, with that, I do want to lead into the first question and the first kind of issue, which is, what do you feel went wrong with the first live stream that led to the backlash that we'll talk about in a little bit?
And from my own perspective, and I think possibly from Vellic's as well, from most people's, the expectation of the topic itself, the marketing of it, how it was presented to us or plated to us, everyone went in thinking we were going to see specifically Camelot Unchained stuff. It was never announced that that was not going to be the case, and it turned out to not be the case. And everyone was just hit out of the blue by it.
The December newsletter.
That's pretty much my feeling also. Was I was expecting something big. And for my part, that might have been misleading also for me, because as somebody who went into Camelot Unchained for the crafting, we haven't heard anything about crafting in nearly a year. Maybe not. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but at least 6 to 8 months. And so I was expecting something big for CU, and I got pretty much caught off guard by the live stream and the topic.
I think he underestimated the expectations. As you said, he's promoting the stream, and people expect CU stuff because what else could it be? And in his mind, the benefit of FSR would be received as good CU news, but that was clearly not the case.
Yeah, my feelings on it are very much as Brand said, and there's one or two comments in chat agreeing as well that many of us expected CU news. And for me in particular, and I think for a lot of people who really pay attention to the updates, which maybe they expect we don't read the newsletter. I don't know. But they put out the newsletter in December, and it's clearly said, if you can, okay, let me rephrase that. If you can read poetry, it clearly states, or heavily implies, that we know you're not happy about the amount of Camelot Unchained updates coming out and the way beta is going, but there's going to be colossal battles at the end of January. And I'm like, I don't know how you expect us to take that, but I'm pretty sure many of us...
There was a battle.
Yeah, definitely. It was just not a CU battle. And so we get there and we're like, okay, this is not what I wanted. So, I do feel like if I had been not expecting CU content, if I'd not gone in expecting to see a big CU update and then they bring out this game, my reaction would have been a little bit different. Also, I kind of disagree with Donnie a little bit. So he didn't think there's anything they could have done. The very next week after that live stream, they show us another live stream, which we will get to in a little bit, for Camelot Unchained updates. And I'm like, why didn't you just delay that first stream a week and show us both. I feel like I would have felt a lot better about it if they'd at least shown us some CU updates and content. And it may be like Apollon said, perhaps they underestimated it. I mean, they kept suggesting and saying that they expected some backlash, but maybe they did underestimate how much backlash there would be. Maybe they thought we'd be more happy about that, and they didn't expect that people were, for some reason, they didn't expect people were so jonesing for CU info. I'm not sure.
Well, they did field test the idea and revealing it to a small group, like 15 people or so, that were in January testing. And when we found out first, we didn't have the expectation of big CU news, we didn't have that. But we all felt the punch in the stomach, when they told us. So it's emphasized through the hype, but we all felt the punch. But we calmed down pretty quickly, a few days of adjusting and, having hands on the game pretty much the next day helped it, because we saw it could be fun and that it's CU tech through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, bring up the hype point, which is a good point as well. Not just Mark hyping it up through the news announcement and prepping us for January. Everyone on the forums, or I wouldn't say everyone, there was at least a thread on the forum that started asking us, what do we think is coming in January? And everyone was hopping on, guessing, and we were hyping ourselves up for it, only to let ourselves down when that day came.
Well, and that's the thing. They don't hype the game up. Like CSC for the last several years have really avoided actively hyping up announcements, hyping up things for the game, and for good reason. So when they put out a newsletter that said, "We know you're not happy, but end of January we are gonna have big battles for you, and it's gonna start with tests. It's gonna start with alpha testers, and then internal testers, and then it's gonna go to alpha testers, and it's gonna go to beta testers." I and probably other people started going around to people going, there's supposed to be a big announcement at the end of January. I told everybody in my guild, there's supposed to be a big announcement at the end of January. Now, I don't expect it to be as huge as we would like, but there's supposed to be a big Camelot Unchained announcement at the end of January, and they made me a liar. Which kind of ticked me off when I get there, and I'm like, people were like, nah, it's not going to be anything. I'm like, they never hyped the game up. They're actually kind of hyping this up a little bit. They kind of posted out like, it's going to be big battles, and I'm like, cool. And maybe they didn't think that was going to do much, but I felt like part of the issue, and this is why, again, I mentioned the Linuxification at the beginning, I feel like part of the issue is that we've been starved for CU information. There have been no updates for ages. And so when there's been no real CU content updates to the actual gameplay, to the actual beta testing, people are hungry for it. So even a tiny bit of hyping got many of us who are starving for that information going, yes, there's going to be something. It's probably not going to be huge, but it's going to be something. And they gave us like almost nothing in that stream. They kept going, well, this same tech is for CU, but how much of it is for CU? I mean, the whole time I'm watching that first stream, I was looking at going, okay, these models I'm not a designer, but these models don't really look quite like CU models. Brandon and I were talking at the same time, and he's like, these textures don't look like CU textures. I asked during the stream, I was like, how many of these models and textures and things can actually be directly ported into CU? And they skipped my question. So I'm sitting there looking at it, and they're like, this can all be reused. And I'm like, okay, maybe the engine stuff, but how much actually can be?
The enemies, for once, are probably gonna end up in the depths or anywhere else. But the thing is, the thing he was hyped about, Mark was hyped about, was the underlying, under the visuals, below the visuals. And because the visuals were created by artists that were hired for Ragnarok. It's an art team. They are not separated from the CU team, but they are 3 new artists, 3 or 4 new coders, people that were hired with the Ragnarok money. And they made these visuals specifically different from CU. And he hoped people would look through that, look at the tech. Because I think what led him astray a bit was knowing how different these hordes work from other games. If you look at the mass crowd tech of Hitman, or the zombie hordes of Dying Light, or I forgot the other zombie horde game, 3 or 4 parts of it. They work as swarms, or it's always trickery. And in Ragnarok, it's individual NPCs each making their own decision. And through the January testing, I heard Mark hype this or be stoked about this time and time again. So they feel like this is some world first tech. And of course, it's going to be SU, it's going to be keep guards, it's going to be herds that go around animals that we need for crafting, and of course the depths. Caravans that are synchronized and are moving all over the board. They all need this tech. And so he was mega stoked about that they achieved what they did. But I told him all that the players are going to see is just another game with a lot of mobs,
Yeah, art, it sounded like, was largely the thing that was specifically new for Ragnarok, and it could be ported over with some extra work, I think, to meet the character 2.0 standards. I want to say I heard him say that the assets for Ragnarok were lower poly due to the nature of the style of the graphics, and there'd probably need to be some rework to port those, which means it's not a universal thing to move from one to the other. And I was having this discussion early on the forums. I think I also heard Mark say about 70% of the tech is shared work.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like what I recall from the stream.
If you factor in the art, of course, like Andrew said, like in terms of the engine and code, it's more like 90%. I feel like he specifically said he wrote less than 10 lines of code for Ragnarok specific. So and the way the code works, it's one code base. They're not switching between games while coding. And it's basically lines that say, if Ragnarok, then. So that's how it splits off as a mod from CU.
And I feel like that's actually a part of the problem that people had with the stream. And again, going back to the people feeling starved for information about CU, we've been in beta for what, a year and a half now?
Something like that way, yeah,
somewhere around there. They're still doing majority work on the engine. Now there's been a lot of arguments about it's being an old school beta, and what does that mean for people playing the game and everything. But either way, I think majority of people we've talked to doing this cast have at least fully agreed with me that at this point, a year and a half into beta, them working primarily on engine tech is kind of a problem. Like, we're like, this game is nowhere near to coming out. Every update is mostly engine tech or background stuff that we can't see. And I think part of the issue with that, besides that it just kind of blends into, this dearth of information that we have about CU, where they're giving us updates, but it's a lot of updates and things that they're working on that don't translate to most backers. Like, they go, hey, we sped up the servers and we did X and we did Y, and we're like, so show that to me. But it's not something that's easily showable. I mean, what are we going to show you, the code? In some cases, they can show it performing. And I feel like where they could have changed things up for the first stream, that would have been impactful, I think, in people's reception, is if they didn't come in and say, we've got a new game, freeze comments, we've got a new game, and we're going to show it to you, blah, 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 blah. But if instead they came in and went, all right, let's show you what's new in Camelot Unchained. We're still doing tons of work on Linuxification, so it's not going to be as much as you want to see, but we've got some other cool news after that. And then they show us, all right, here's CU. Here's how many people we have. Here's the server not crashing. And they do need to work on their delivery message for this, the messaging for this stuff. Like, we're going to get to the new stream, the last week's stream later in the show. But they need to highlight better the changes, because a lot of us don't have the technical know-how to understand what the hell they're talking about. Like, I don't want to let myself get into it. I don't want to digress into it too much, because we're going to talk about it in a minute, the new stream in a minute. But they need to do a better job, I think, of highlighting those changes for people, dumbing it down for us, and showcasing some of that. And then I feel like if they had just shown the CU changes first, even if they're not that dramatic, and maybe with like the roadmap and stuff, and then went, all right, now we've got a new game we've been working on. Yes, people would have still been pissed. I do not doubt for a second people wouldn't have been pissed. But I think it would have been less. I don't think it would have been quite as bad. And we're going to get into the backlash, the community backlash in just a second here. But I'm going to stop rambling and let y'all add anything you may have to about why the stream was okay or why the stream went so negatively, while I also catch up on chat comments.
Well, for me, that was a bit of a shock, especially since I came in late to the stream, and I was like, "Wait, what's going on?" And then trying to catch up on everything, and then I was at first I was surprised, and then as they were kind of dodging some questions, which I understand since they were trying to present a new game rather than answering CU questions.
Part of the issue.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of made my blood boil a bit.
Because people were asking questions to try to justify, like, okay, how much of this work is getting done in CU? And most of those questions often got pushed into a generalized question. Like, oh, well, some people are asking about what content can be reused. I'm like, no, I asked a very specific question about specific content. And
yeah, it did look in the middle of the stream on the Discord chat, which is where everyone migrated to since we couldn't talk in Twitch at the time. The devs were responding to those questions in a much more thorough and understandable manner, kind of clearing up some of the air. But at that time, people were just really irritated and not quite taking
ready to listen.
Yeah. I am just as guilty of that on that daily stream.
Go ahead, Apollon. Sorry.
And let's not forget that when they put out big info dumps, the last times were the first 30 days of beta and the beta manual. And Kriss and I took part in translating that. We were really proud of delivering them simultaneously with the English versions. And there was a lot of words. And a lot of these words haven't come true yet. So that's frustrating, you know. Like Saturday Night Sieges haven't happened, like you said, 1.5 years in. So people, that's where the unbalance comes from, you know. Now again, new info, not about CU, but playable, but the things that we were waiting for a year or more, not playable yet.
Yeah, I think that also aggravated things. Seeing that there was, according to them, it was easier to make, so that's why there's more. But people were still seeing more gameplay on a game that supposedly had been worked on for 6 months than on a game they've been working on for 5 years.
Yeah, while they're working on that for the last 4 to 6 months, we've seen almost no gameplay updates for CU the entire time. And so then they're like, we're totally working on CU. And we're like, are you? I mean, you put this out. So just from a PR perspective, it looks bad. And that's what I want to turn to, because I don't want us to spend the whole time on that first stream. I want us to have some time to talk about the follow-up. But for a moment, I wanted to look at the backlash a bit. And the community backlash for everything, because there was a bit of furor, you could say, on Discord. I've got a few of images. The Reddit, there is a Camelot Unchained subreddit. I'm one of the moderators for it. It turned into a what I would call a dumpster fire. And the Discord was definitely not any better. The forums were not really much better. But I have some visuals to represent some of that. Here's the first meme about rehabilitation, which was supposed to speed up game development. I don't know where that went after they spent a year doing it. I will, full transparency, that's my meme. This one's not mine, but the Camelot Unleashed, or Unreleased, I keep wanting to say it wrong. Then this is just a collage I made of Reddit posts. There were a lot of Reddit posts about refunds, lots about how this is the end of the game, everything's gonna die, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not going through all these. I just kind of wanted to give a snapshot of what the overall response was. And I have two questions for everybody, kind of related to this. The first is, and I think most of us agree on this to some degree at least, whether or not we feel that people's concerns were properly addressed in those during the stream and during the first day.
I would say no during the first stream and the first day. I don't think things were properly addressed until Mark Jacobs spent the next 3 days not sleeping, typing responses on the forums, trying his best to appease everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think it hit him until the next day that it was as bad as it was.
Yeah. Being a mod on the Discord and on the Twitch channel, it took a lot of restraints for me to just not say anything, because it would have not helped the situation. And I feel sorry for the mods, because they went through fire that day. They really went through fire on Twitch and on Discord. That was, yeah. I feel really sorry for them. And they did a great job of keeping their cool, even if it was rough on them, because they're not even part of the dev team. They're volunteers, and they had to share some of the backlash.
Yeah, and I will absolutely throw out that I do not support in any way, even though I was pissed. I was livid. And I gave CSE a little bit of peace of my mind, but I always try to be fair with my criticism, and one, keep it general, and two, keep it focused on what the issue is. People attacking and lashing out at the devs, I don't think is fair. At the very most, if you had an issue with the stream and the decisions, it should have been directed at Mark Jacobs himself, since he's head of the company. I just wanted to add, I absolutely don't think it was appropriate for people to be lashing out at the individual devs themselves.
And that's where.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's where it all comes together for me, why I am still passionate about the project. It's because of the people that work there. Because I've had dealings with almost every one of CSE individually at one point or another, be it for translation or some other reason. And they are always really genuinely honest with the backers as much as they can. They reply to, I'm not specially known to each dev. Mark knows me, and the people I have to do with for translation, like Charles, who's my liaison in terms of posting translations to the website. But like people like Christina, they sit in Seattle. They have never heard of me, and they are really, really forthcoming with information. If they have the feeling that you're trying to help the project, and they are lovely people, and they are not shilling for Mark. They are passionate about CU. Like Tim specifically said, he'd rather kill some players in CU than play any Ragnarok. So they are very passionate people about Camelot Unchained in the studio, and they are working on CU.
Yeah, I think for me is very much what Tennis just said. I feel like the big problem with the backlash and how it was handled during the stream, answering questions, and during Discord and everything for the next couple of days is, I understand, they were trying to address individual people and individual concerns and stuff, but honestly, there had to be some degree of that, some degree of Mark staying up and replying to things, but it's the wrong place to do it. part of my message I kept saying was I want them to publicly address this, give us more information, address these concerns, because when they go to the forums and they reply to one person and they say, oh, this is why blah, 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 the other 90% of the people who are ticked off do not see that, and they're going to keep raging. That does not disseminate. The forums do not disseminate to most people. The posts on the Discords do not disseminate to most people. Like Bram was talking about them adding questions during the stream and answering things, answering people's concerns on the Discord itself. I was at work during that stream. I'm sitting here at work trying to do work and listen to the stream at the same time. I was every now and then going on to the CU Discord. I'm not sitting there reading every response they have on there. Most people on the stream are not in the Discord. And so I really wanted like an email. It's like an email going out the next day would have been a good way, I think, to help mollify and at least address some of the issues. And I think that would have been, advantageous. We still don't have, as Tennis pointed out, we still don't really have a major like text announcement, like an email that really quantifies and explains all the stuff he explained during the live stream. We just have the live stream, and a lot of people are not going to go back and review that live stream and sit through it. They're going to get the information filtered out to them and so on and so forth. So I do think that that was a bit of the problem for why the backlash lasted as long as it did. Because, it was a week before we really got any sort of satisfying catharsis to the overarching issues.
There were a lot of people coming in for refunds throughout the entire week who 3 days after the announcement were just hearing about some of this stuff and had no idea really the specifics of it, and just jumped straight to asking for their money back without knowing anything, it seemed.
And it's hard to counter them. If you want to keep them, you need somewhere to direct them to so they can have all the infos before they decide if they want the refund or not. And there's nothing. You can't tell them to watch a 3 to 5 hour stream trying to go through all the questions that were asked in chat or in the Discord or anything. You need to have a central area where a central post, somewhere on the website. Even it's the easiest way is on the website, a compendium of everything we know so far, everything they have released, everything. Even if they don't give us date, at least give us the order of priorities, something that people can at least see what's going on.
Yeah, one of the things that for me felt real janky about the whole thing was they pushed out the Ragnarok info 2 weeks ago, and then they pushed out the CU update, at least some of it, this week.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was like, why couldn't you have just delayed this announcement a week, 2 weeks? Maybe they were afraid of backlash of another delay of some sort. I don't know. But the whole time I'm just sitting there like, if you have the progress, if you have the development and the stuff that's done in CU, why are we getting these separately?
It's entirely possible that they plan to, and they didn't hit their deadline with their Ragnarok testing, because even before that first update, they were coming down to like an hour before even streaming to see if they were even capable of announcing it. They weren't sure, and maybe they just ran out of time that whole week and were behind.
I can confirm that we started testing Ragnarok on January 2nd, and that wasn't ready to show, So in 4 weeks they polished this thing very, very much. The fun factor doubled plenty of times during January, so they crunched during January, and I don't think they have the mark you saw was the mark at the end of 1 month of crunching, and it showed, and it was rushed, and I don't know why the website didn't have anything. I don't know what Ku was doing during that time, but I'm sure everyone was working their ass off.
So I do want to go to the new stream because I don't want us to run out of time, and like I said, we do have a hard cutoff at in about 6 minutes. So, I do want to get to the makeup stream because I think that is important to really talk about that and some of the things that they put out. Just to go over it real quick for people who may not have been there, which I know is probably not most of the people in stream. They put out a features and tech list. There's a lot of stuff here. Honestly, I drilled it down to a short list of things I thought people actually cared about, which is not most of the stuff in this list. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that people care about. It's just, for the average backer, most of the technical stuff, I feel like when we get updates for these all the time, we're like, okay, sure, that's cool, I guess. But there's really not. I had a list of about 10 things that I was like, all right, these are things people probably actually care about in this list as actual updates. They also showed us changes in streams. Bram put this together with one of the old Cherry Keep builds, comparing it to the new one. There's been some changes to some of the FX and things. I think the one that Mark showed us this past week actually looked the before was a little bit more developed than the one we have for a picture, I think. Just because the attacks both ways were a little bit more developed, I think. But they did show us some actual game footage and everything of what the updates look like. Now, again, this is where I feel like there's a bit of an issue of their messaging and needing to show us explicitly what changes are. Because he's sitting there on one hand going, see how good it is, it's not crashing, and then he crashes like 3 times during it. And he expects us to understand that that's his client crashing, not the server crashing. And I'm like, you can't just assume that. Well, I'm sitting there like, really? It's not crashing? I mean, it looks like it's crashing to me. I was in Discord like, is it crashing for other people or what? So that's kind of a thing. And lastly, I'm going to leave this one up a little bit here.
Sure.
Is the 90-day plan that they put out. This is something I was very pleased about, I will say, because I have been begging for years for them to put out a rough plan of what is coming next in development. I don't expect for a minute that all this stuff is going to be done in 90 days. I would be so supremely surprised if even 80% of this is done in 90 days, but I don't care. I'm just happy to know what they plan on working on for the next third of a year.
I've already said on the forums that if they can get 90% of this done, that's a win. By that 90-day period, which is more than gameplay-wise that they've done in a year. So that would be helpful. There's also some very interesting things on there. New class is great coming out. The potential addition of bringing in one of the extender classes, which was never thought to be coming in before launch.
My concern on that is we had to go through a backlash, a huge backlash to get that. And we shouldn't have had to.
Yeah, ideally, that it should have been part of the stream 2 weeks ago, and I think that would, like I said, have mollified a lot of people. There still would have been backlash. I'm convinced of that, but I think it would have been much less dumpster fiery. I know that me personally, I can't say all. Many of the concerns I had, many of the deepest concerns I had, were at least partially addressed by this last week's stream. It wasn't completely addressed. In fact, there were some specific things, like during the first stream, he went into the game, turned up to the skybox, and was like, hey, you see this new skybox? Isn't that way better than the old skybox? And I'm like, oh, is that in CU now? I asked during the stream. No, they skipped my question. Nobody answered it. Then we got to the second stream this past week, and I asked again, and the answer was basically, this will make it easier to do in CU. So I was like, no, it's not in the new CU. Okay, good to know. And so it didn't answer all my issues. And in fact, the one big game play update on here on the 90-day plan is for a new scenario with a central keep that has building. And I was like, really? You're putting building in the game? And I asked about that during the stream, and Mark said, we're not telling how that's going to work. Because I asked how it's going to work or how they want it to work, and he just said, we're not telling. And I'm like, So do you not know?
Right, yeah.
Or are you just withholding it for some reason, even though you just ticked everybody off about not giving us any gameplay update, and that's the one main gameplay update on this list?
Yeah, it definitely looks like the new scenario will have more gameplay features, and I think that's something that people looking at the Siege of Cherry Keep may not understand, or why they're not seeing a big change between the May version and this version. Is it's not a gameplay scenario, it's a siege stress test scenario, and always has been. And
Yeah.
aside from Mark Jacobs coding in spawning 2,000 bots for funsies, it's never been a gameplay scenario. And Medic and I were talking about that earlier today, and that the combat that does exist in it does not represent the spirit of gameplay that we should be getting for these bigger actual combat scenarios that we'll see in the future, hopefully.
And I agree with Donnie that part of the problem is that they said this stuff will help CU significantly, and people didn't believe them. And one of the reasons I've backed so much into the game is because I held off and watched what they were doing until I saw how much they communicated with people, and how much, and I decided I can kind of trust what they're saying and stuff. I like that they're communicating, they're being open, and that was my main message. On the forums and stuff was kind of going, this hurts my trust in CSC.
Yes.
And a large part of it was them kind of hyping it up as a CU content thing, coming in expecting CU content, and then getting a CU update. Especially when we're mad that there's no CU update, and then he's on stream 2 weeks ago going, "This is all CU content," and I'm like, "Really?
No, it's not.
All right, now you're just bullshitting me." And so I do kind of feel like the people that were sitting there going, you can't just kind of take that we trust you for granted on this stuff. He needs to show us, because there's also people like me who sees like the Cherry Hill Keep update, and I was looking at it going, what's different? I don't know what's different here. I mean, there's a little bit that looks a little bit different, and then okay, maybe it's performing differently, but for me, I've never had problems with performance in Cherry Hill Keep until he summons in like 4,000 NPCs. So I'm like, this always kind of runs pretty well on my PC, so I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
And that's just what the scenario is. There's not much you can add to it gameplay wise to show that we have all these new things, because that's not what the scenario was ever built for.
Well, at least now we have a RVR scenario, specific RVR scenario to look forward to. And I can't wait. I want to see class action. I want to go 8v8, and I want to kill some people.
Absolutely. And we're about to have to turn off here, but I did want to put out some of the parts of the 90-day plan that I thought were good that they mentioned, that are things that I'm looking forward to. There's going to be some Cherry Hill Keep visual updates that they haven't put in yet, that they have some of the tech for, and they haven't had time to put in. Because again, we have to remember this last week's stream, they basically threw it together in part of a week to show it to us. They didn't have a ton of time to flesh it out, really. New central Keep Siege scenario with building, repairing. Those are things we haven't really seen at all yet. Knockback, haven't seen for a while. Used to have it. Haven't really seen that for a while. Devout, war bands, because those have never worked. At least next steps for crafting, which would be nice to at least know what the next steps for developing it are.
I'll wait to see it to believe it.
Salt in the wound for Kriss.
I know, right?
Yes.
Improved engine pathfinding, ragdoll improvements. Consider bringing in spirit mages early. Not the class I'd personally prefer to see, but any class if they already have the tech for it. I mean, the tech improvements for one thing have made it more possible. That's cool. And Linuxification, the big thing is that, at least in theory, Linuxification is supposed to make it so that we can have maybe not 24/7, but overnight testing servers, so they can run like weekend tests and stuff without having to have someone there to reset things. And that is one of the things that I want to see. Now, Sacrix brings up some good points that we've been given lists before. We've been given beta lists specifically before, and but
oh yeah.
I would still rather have lists that they don't get everything done in than them just giving us silence and no lists. So that's kind of a thing.
This is going to be a make or break point for them if they don't
I
meet
believe
most
so,
of
yeah.
this stuff.
I think for a lot of people, it really is going to be it's the 90 days to save probably a lot of the trust their community has in them.
Yeah. All right. So, again, we're actually a little bit past the time I said I had a hard cutoff. Thanks,
Yeah.
Epilon, for coming out. Thanks, everybody, for coming and listening to us. As I said, I'm sorry, but we do have a cutoff because the Smart Gamer Live podcast is starting in like 10 minutes, and I have to get over there. I am going to end the stream, and if you want to join over to that other podcast and watch and comment and stuff, I will do a raid in a few minutes to bring everybody over there in 5 to 10 minutes, depending on whether they're up right now or not. And hopefully I'll see some of you there. And thanks again. As a reminder,
Thanks for watching, guys.
monthly episodes every second Wednesday, or not second Wednesday, every second Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.